to an important client today, and I couldn't remember the man's name. And he knew it.
Oh, sweetheart, that happens to everyone once in a while. It's natural.
Well, it's been happening too often. And it's not going to happen again. I'm going to do something about it. In fact, I already have. I bought this book. I read the first 2 chapters on the train on the way home. It's fascinating.
Oh, instant memory can be yours. That's nice. You start your homework. I'll start dinner.
I'm testing your memory, dear. Do you remember me?
I wouldn't mind forgetting you, Endora.
Perfect memory. It's ridiculous.
What's so ridiculous about it?
Well, the ability to forget is very important to you mortals. You do so many stupid things, a perfect memory would be impossible to live with.
Is that so?
Total recall can only be handled by a strong, mature mind. Now, where does that leave you, Dawson?
It leaves me wishing that you would mind your own business. Excuse me if I ignore you.
So you want a perfect memory, huh?
Cynthia! The wife of the man whose name I couldn't remember. Cynthia Pennybaker. That's it. Isn't that marvelous?
Wonderful.
My memory's working. I remember a lot of things about it. He loves Beethoven, hates Wagner, he raises parakeets. He's got 3 children. Mark, age 14, Sylvia, age 11, and a little 3-year-old named Willie.
Fascinating.
Yes, isn't it? And I only just began the 3rd chapter. Hey, hot cakes and blueberries.
Thought I'd give you something different.
Well, it's not different. You fixed them once before.
No, I don't think so.
It was September 14th, raining, Saturday. You were wearing the yellow dress with the white polka dots.
Oh, what a yellow dress. I wonder whatever happened to it. I liked it. I'll have to look for it.
Mm-mm. You gave it away to Mrs. Dumont for the rummage sale.
I did.
That was the same rummage sale that you whipped up that enormous chocolate cake for.
It was an emergency. It was also a very good cause.
5 minutes after I'd told you no witchcraft and you had faithfully promised.
Darren, while you're remembering, do you also remember that every time you bring up that chocolate cake, we get into an argument? How about forgetting it,
I'll drop the subject. But I'll never forget it. Yeah, Larry.
Darren, Mr. Pennybaker's here. Mr. Pennybaker, I wonder if you'd mind coming in.
My pleasure.
And every parakeet, or budgie as we call them, that I've got, I've practically hand-raised from an egg. How about that? Your average bird isn't very intelligent, you know. But those little budgies...
Oh, Ed, I don't know whether you remember Darren Stevens or not.
Oh, yes, I remember Stevens, but I'm not too sure whether he remembers me.
Well, of course I do, Mr. Pennybaker. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
And how are the children? Mark and Sylvia? Your little 3-year-old Willie?
Oh, they're just fine. And, call me Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
Ed was just telling me some fascinating things about his parakeet.
Yes, I've got a bird that picks up a new word every week. There's no telling how far that bird can go.
I remember reading in the dentist's office about a budgerigar, or budgie as they're called, owned by an English woman. That bird knew 12 nursery rhymes by heart and had a vocabulary of over 300 words.
Oh, come off it, Darren.
No, he's right. I know about that bird. I didn't know you were a budgie man.
I'm not. I just remember reading about it in the dentist's office. The bird was called Sandy and was owned by Mrs. Irene Pauls of Staines in Middlesex.
Yes. Beautiful country, Middlesex. You know, I drove through there on my way down to London from Manchester. Oh.
Excuse me for correcting you, Ed, but that would be the Midlands, not Middlesex.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Well, I suppose it's possible to do a little constructive work around here.
Oh, sure, Ed. Sure.
That's no good. Wait a minute. Now, here's something I like. Simple, plain, almost baroque.
Oh, excuse me, Ed, but if memory serves me, the Baroque period in art was highly ornamental. It followed the Renaissance and found its extreme expression in the Rococo.
What are you doing? Taking extension courses and everything? Knock it off, will you, Darren?
Sorry, Larry, it just popped into my mind. Art 101, Professor Eckhart. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 o'clock. I got a B-. He had a good-looking daughter.
Darren, you're flunking your postgraduate course in advertising.
Sorry. Sorry, Ed.
Here we are.
Well, I'll tell you something I've discovered about Larry. He doesn't like for me to charge things. He'd rather give me the cash. It seems to give him a sense of power and being charitable to me.
Very interesting.
Louise?
Hi.
How are you, dear? I know what you want. Just tell me how much. This is Mr. Pennybaker, our favorite client, my wife, Louise, and Mrs. Stevens.
How do you do?
How do you do? Oh, Darren was telling me about you last night. I hear you have 3 wonderful children.
Oh, yes, I do indeed. And you know, it's a pleasure working with your husband.
Will this be enough, darling?
Without looking, no. Mr. Pennybaker, if you and your wife aren't busy, why don't you join us for dinner tonight?
Well, that would be fine.
Oh, good. Samantha, we'll expect you and Darren, too.
Just a minute. I believe it's our turn.
Oh, yes. Yes, please let us do it.
Darren, it isn't your turn at all.
You still have a rain check from that Thursday, month before last, when we invited you and you didn't show up.
Well, I didn't hear a thing about it. Now, the next time you want us for dinner, you just call me. Don't tell your husband to tell my husband.
Wait a minute. Darren didn't tell me anything about a dinner date. I'd never forget a thing like that.
Are you trying to say I didn't tell you?
Oh, sweetheart, even if you did, it doesn't make any difference.
I tell you, I told him. Let me see. Now I remember. After I told him, he made a note of it in the margin of a sketch we were working on for the McCollins account.
Marvelous. He even remembers things that never happened.
Oh, Larry, if that's the way it's going to be, you want proof, huh? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Tate?
This is Mr. Stevens, Betty. Will you please send in the McCollins account?
Yes, sir. Oh, Darren, don't. Louise, I really wasn't upset. I just assumed that Darren forgot to tell Larry.
That's another reason I want to get this settled.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Betty. There we are. Dinner with the Stevens, Thursday, 7 o'clock.
Let me see that.
That is your handwriting, dear.
Well, what if it is? What does that prove? See, I didn't remember to tell him.
Oh, Samantha, it was our fault. I'm dreadfully sorry.
Oh, don't be silly, Louise. This whole thing is ridiculous.
Larry?
I am sorry, Samantha. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Louise.
Mr. Pennybaker, in case you're wondering where you're going to have dinner tonight, it'll be at our house. All right, Louise?
Oh, anything, but let's go shopping.
Yes, well, I think I better go, too. I'll walk you ladies out. You know, not too long ago, a dispute like this could have ended on the dueling field. Everything according to the Code Duello. Ladies, you probably don't know this, but the dueling code has a very interesting history. Now, you take the age of chivalry. A gentleman in those days. Pleased with yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Larry, but you've been bugging me about my memory. I've been trying to improve it.
I know Ed Pennybaker. He considers himself an authority on everything. He likes to be on.
I didn't know this.
How could you? You were talking all the time.
Larry, you've got to admit that I did remember every detail of his account.
Yes. Yes. Now I wish you'd go to your office and practice a little forgetting.
I can't. It's a wonderful thing. I can't. And, Larry, I want to thank you for insisting that I improve my memory. Thanks, Larry. Slow. English literature. Room 314, new annex building. The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold. His cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. So that's all I recall, yeah.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes, Betty.
I have this international products letter for you to sign.
Oh, good. Betty, you have a semicolon here in the fourth sentence where I dictated a colon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, it's all right. You can fix it with an eraser.
Oh, fine.
Send that right out.
Thank you.
Which reminds me, that's the fourth time this year you've made the same mistake. The first time was in February in a letter to the Frisbee account. And the second time was concerning the Rohrbach account. That was on April the 12th. And most recently, it was in a letter to Clyde, Burke, and Wheel. Only this time you made the same mistake in reverse. A colon instead of semicolon. Better watch that.
Yes, sir.
Coming back. Coming back.
guess.
Good.
The milkman?
Right. How about paying your bill, lady?
There. Where's my change? Oh, Darren, they're lovely. What's the occasion?
It's an anniversary.
Of what?
Our first quarrel.
Oh, how very thoughtful of you.
I was remembering how nice it was making up afterwards.
Yes, that was nice. Thank you.
I remember I took you to dinner, the theater, and dancing afterward.
Oh, yes, you were so charming and gallant.
Remember the funny little waiter with the toupee?
You were very romantic, too.
And the band leader who was smashed out of his skull?
Oh, and I remember how sweet you were.
Oh, honey, you must remember him. They had him propped up between two music stands. It was the night we had the fight. It all started when
Darren, I can't even remember what the fight was about.
Oh, I can. It was the time you were going to meet me outside my office building, and you were waiting at the wrong entrance, which left me standing for 1 solid hour in the pouring rain. You do remember that, don't you?
For heaven's sakes. Well, why did you go to the side entrance? You always go to the front entrance, and that's where I waited for you.
I was waiting there because you asked me to meet you there.
Well, now, why would I do a thing like that? You made a mistake. You were just too wet and irritable to admit it.
It was for your convenience that I was there. You were doing some shopping in that dress store on the side street.
Well, that's ridiculous, Darren. That shop never had anything I wanted.
For your information, that was the day and the place where you bought that yellow dress with the white polka dots that you gave to the rummage committee, along with that chocolate cake that you whipped up.
Don't you raise your voice like that to me.
There, see? You always say that whenever I'm right, and I'm right, aren't I?
All right. You're right. Here. Take your raggedy old flowers and press them in your dumb old instant memory book.
Well, if it's wrong for a man to try to improve himself, to study hard to get ahead in his job, so that he can do better by his wife and child, well...
Darren, I'm sorry, but don't you think you've improved your memory enough? Don't you just forget about the rest of the book?
Samantha, if it weren't for that book, I wouldn't have remembered about our first quarrel, and I wouldn't have brought you these flowers.
And we wouldn't be having this brand new fight. I'm sorry. You're lovely. And I love you very much. Oh, that makes it all worthwhile.
Which reminds me of the time...
Listen, but none of you remember the really early cars. Now, I mean the first ones. For instance, who remembers the Lexington Minuteman? Now, there
It was a 4-cylinder, 4-passenger sports car, early 1900s. But the interesting thing is, it had bucket seats. My great Aunt Emma had one. I haven't thought of it in years.
That's all right as far as you went. But the valve system...
Ed, to be completely accurate, the Lexington was hardly one of your first cars. After all, the internal combustion engine, the first patent was taken out in 1886 by Gottlieb Daimler, and credit's generally given to a man named Krebs for all the features that we find in today's modern car. He designed the Panhard in 1894, which...
Right. Would you mind refilling my glass?
Darling, since when have you been so interested in old cars?
Yes, I was wondering that myself.
Oh, I'm not. But I was doing some research on automobiles for a motor car campaign we were doing back on June the 16th, 1963, and I just picked up a little information here and there.
Picked up. You made a career of it. My refill, please.
Ed, Darren tells me that you're quite a music lover.
Yes, Ed, tell us about it.
Well, I must say I do pride myself on my knowledge of... Does your husband know music, Samantha?
Not really, no.
We hope. Well, see, I'm particularly interested in that creative giant, Ludwig van Beethoven.
Beethoven. How nice.
You know, there's an enduring vitality in all the great music of the classical period. Now, you take Beethoven.
Excuse me, Ed, but as I understand it, Beethoven was what we call a transition composer.
Darren.
Now, the composers of your classical period were Haydn, Mozart, your romantic composers, Chopin, Schumann. Beethoven and Schubert, they came in between, therefore, transition, QED.
Your husband doesn't know music.
I don't. Just something I picked up from the notes on the record album. You remember, Louise, that album of symphony favorites you gave to me on my birthday 8 years ago?
So now it's our fault, huh?
Larry's been thinking of putting in a wine cellar, and we don't know anything about it. I just wondered if you could advise us on anything we should get.
Oh, boy.
As a matter of fact,
There's something about French wines that I'll bet none of you know. In 1875...
Darren.
In a moment, dear. There was a terrible blight in the French vineyards.
Darren, I'd like to see you in the kitchen.
right now.
Well, excuse me, folks. Back in a minute. Why don't you take over, Ed?
Thank you. Now, about that wine cellar, now that's something I really know. We built one, you know.
Well, what has gotten into you?
Honey, isn't it marvelous? Only a few sessions with that great little book, and already my memory's increased 1,000%. I can't imagine what it'll be like after I finish it.
I dread the thought. Don't you see that Ed's just about ready to kill you?
Why? We have so many interests in common. You see, isn't it exciting? It's total recall, that's what it is. And your mother thought I couldn't handle it. Mom!
Mother? I've seen my mother in 2 weeks. Darren has. Mother? Mother? Well, unbearable, isn't he? You did it, didn't you? I warned him he'd be impossible to live with. You mean he asked you for the power? No. He thinks he's doing the whole thing with that little pointed head of his. May I say, he's on the way to becoming the champion bore of the world. You take that spell off him. But Samantha, I didn't put the spell on him. Which is honor. If you didn't put a spell on him, then it must be something he has with him, some object. What? That's for me to know and you to find out. It's a nice little challenge for you, dear. Something he's wearing? Something he has with him all the time? Then we know how it comes out. I'm taking off to Rio. Really? Something.
No, Ed, it wasn't that way at all. Ed, you'll excuse me. Columbia came to the Rose Bowl to play Stanford. Nobody gave him a chance. They played the game in a pouring rain. It was a scoreless tie in the fourth quarter. My Uncle Max told me all about it when I was a little kid. Columbia's coach, Lou Little, had worked out a key play. And at the right moment, Columbia's quarterback. Faded back for the ball, and he threw it.
Darren, you tell Ed all about it.
Well, he threw it to, what's his name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. What is his name, Ed? Help me.
His name was Barabbas. Al Barabbas. He scored a touchdown. They converted. The final score was 7-0, and you lost $35 to Jess Wallach when you couldn't afford it.
How about that? Yes. Well, how'd you know that, Cynthia?
Well, I don't know. Yes, I do. I've heard that story. Let's see. Ed and I have been married 15 years. He's told the story at least twice a week. That means I would have heard it at least 1,560 times.
What?
Oh, I know his fishing story almost as well. He's only told that 1,422 times.
All right, Cynthia.
Oh, just a minute, darling. How'd you like to hear about orchid raising? He just started that 10 years ago, so he's only told that 836 times.
I realize that I monopolized the conversation.
Oh, but you do, darling. Oh, let me tell you about our 10th anniversary. We decided to go back to Niagara Falls to recapture romance. We had a lovely view of the falls. I saw them, but I never heard them. There was something drowning them out.
Cynthia.
I'm sorry, Ed. I shouldn't have said all that. But suddenly something came over me, and all of a sudden everything came back.
Was I as bad as that? I realize. I mean, I go on and on and on about anything, everything, the way he does.
Oh, gee, everybody, I'm sorry if I was talking too much. Sam, was I?
Samantha, why don't you give Darren and Ed something else to think about? Like maybe some food for thought?
Oh, that's an excellent idea, Larry. Well, if memory serves, dinner is ready.
Morning, sweetheart.
Morning.
Honey, where's my instant memory book?
Darren, after all we've been through, what do you want that thing for?
I misplaced my watch. I thought maybe a quick review would help me remember where I left it.
Oh, well, I took it. The strap was broken. I'm going to have it fixed. I forgot to tell you. You see, it's my memory, not yours.
I have a strange feeling there is something wrong with my memory. All that total recall, that couldn't have been entirely from that book. What conversation did I have with your mother that slipped my mind like I wish every conversation I had with your mother would?
You suspect my mother? Why, Darren, I find that hard to believe.
I just find it harder to deny.
Much harder. But I love you. So could you try and forget about mother and memory and remembering and concentrate on that?
Cinch.